गुरवे नमः। नमामि गौडपादञ्च शङ्करं श्रीसुरेश्वरं स्वामिनं सच्चिदानन्दमिन्द्रं तं ज्ञानरूपिणे। ॐ नारायण नारायण। अमया just a minute. I'll put one mic. Ayyo Rama. I think this is more convenient. Okay. Okay. In Sugama, we raised a Purvapakshi raised an objection. Okay, Purvapakshi raised an objection that why not we say Ahamartha is the Atma. Ahamartha, what is a matter of I notion? What is a matter of I notion, or in other words, the Vachartha, the direct meaning of I notion. Why not we take that alone is an Atma? And he has given his own certain arguments. So one by one he is refuting. Siddhanti is refuting these arguments. Okay. In these things, Atma is a drashta. Drashta means is a knower, is an ever witnessing consciousness. And it witnessing consciousness can never be. Witnessing consciousness can never be an object. Object means it can never be, how to say, no thought can be entertained, let us say this way. Neither a thought of this nor a thought of I. Neither a notion of this nor a notion of I. No notion can be entertained. This way is better. No notion can be entertained about Atma. This is an interesting thing. No notion can be entertained about Atma. If you have a notion, then that is an Atma. That is a simple. Any notion is witnessed by the Sakshi. Any notion is witnessed by the Sakshi. Sakshi himself is not available for any notion. Okay. Sakshi himself is not available for any notion. Therefore, this is a very clear experience. No notion can be Atma, because a notion is an object of consciousness, is not consciousness itself. No notion, no thought is consciousness. All thoughts are known within the consciousness. Therefore, Atma itself is not available for any notion, any kind of notion. Either this notion or I notion, aham pratyaya or idam pratyaya. Atma is available for no pratyaya. Allave. Therefore, any pratyaya you have, all those pratyayas are about an Atma, not about Atma. Atma is the pure consciousness. Therefore, any anatma means what? A thought about what? Regarding Atma, no thought can be entertained. Isn't it? No thought can be entertained regarding Atma. And the thought that you entertain is an anatma. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Therefore, we say it is Adhyasa. a thought that you entertain, that is always about anatma. Anatma means something other than atma. There is no such thing called other than atma. Because other than atma is only an imagined thing. There is only atma, and anything other than atma is only imagined. It doesn't exist. Therefore, anatma is an anrutam, atma is satya. Atma is self-existing. Atma is self-existing, and anatma is only a notion. A notion without a reality, without an object. So Atma itself thought of as something anatma. Therefore, anrutam. Anyway, that we have discussed already before. Now we are only in this much. So aham pratyaya swabhuta bhashyantara vishayakaihi pratyayaihi satatam vikriyate. Atma tu tesham sarvesham vikaranamapi sadaikarupo drashta iti anubhava siddhametat. Okay. This also we have discussed already. So भिन्न स्वभावयोः तादात्म्य संभवात् आध्यासिकमेव अहम प्रत्यय आलम्बनता इत्यवगम्यते. Therefore, any this point we already stated. Any thought other than thought itself is about anatma. Anatma means which doesn't exist because it's other than atma. There is nothing other than atma. Nacha niyamena ahantanugamaat tadharmya atmanah iti shankyam sushuptadau ananvayat. The next point. This point we will discuss. If we discuss the old points, it will be repetition. I think it is recorded already. You can listen to the previous talks. We will proceed with the next only. Ahanta. Ahanta means the notion of I. The notion of I is the very nature of Atma. This is what Purvapakshi says. Purvapakshi says that the notion of I is the very nature of Atma. Therefore, this I notion continuously exists with Atma. It is the very nature of Atma. Atma can never be free from I notion. This is what was the argument of Purvapakshi. Now Siddhanti refers to this and refutes it. Nacha niyamena ahanta anugamat tadharmya atmanah iti shankyam tadharmyam atmanah iti shankyam. Purvapakshi says this I notion is with the Atma all the time. That means Atma is seen to be a meaning of I notion. Atma is seen to be the meaning of I notion, or it is always associated with I notion, and that I notion always exists with Atma. Atma is never free from I notion. Therefore, we have to say aham pratyaya is the nature of Atma. Sushuptadau ananvayat. Siddhanti says no, this is wrong, because I notion is not the nature of Atma. I notion is not the nature of Atma, because whatever is the nature of a given thing, it can never get rid of. Anything, we generally give the nature of fire. Heat is the nature of fire. So a fire can never be free from heat. It can never get rid of heat and stay as a fire. Therefore, because heat is its very intrinsic nature. What is its nature? It can't exist without it. In fact, heat and fire are not two things. Heat and fire are not two things. Heat is fire, fire is heat. They are just two different words to refer to the one and the same entity. Similarly, whatever is the nature of Atma, it cannot get rid of it. It cannot be free from it. So, if I notion or aham pratyaya, if aham pratyaya were the nature of Atma, Atma could never be free from aham pratyaya. Purvapakshi says, yes, that's what we are telling. Atma is never free from aham pratyaya. You always have a notion of I. I is a notion. This is not a notion, he says. It is the very nature of Atma. It is the Vedantins, Advaitins alone say. This is one point, as I told you in the previous class. This is unique to Advaitins. All other non-Advaitins, all others say I notion is the nature of Atma. Whether take Vishishta Advaitins, Dvaitins, Nimbarka, Vallabha, or many other schools, even Arya Samaj, all other people, they all take I notion is the nature of Atma. Even Mimamsakas, Sankhya's, everybody. Nayayikas. Only Advaitins alone say I notion being a notion, it is illumined by consciousness, it is not the nature of consciousness. Consciousness is a pure consciousness, it is not a notional state. Consciousness is not is notional. That means no notion can stick to Atma. Consciousness is pure without any notion. If you have a notion, then that is known to consciousness, and Atma can become free from notion. How? Purvapakshi says that I notion is always there. I am never free from I notion. Yeah. For this, the Siddhanti replies, Sushuptadau ananvayat. Because in deep sleep and also Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no I notion. See, our own experience comes to prove this fact, that Atma exists without any notion. Atma exists without any notion. Because all notions including I notion is an Atma. All notions including I notion is an Atma. The Atma itself is free from any notion. It is just a self-illumining consciousness of which you cannot entertain any thought. If you entertain a thought becomes thought means individualizing, a given thing. When you say consciousness is a given thing, see, any object you see in life as a something, as a given thing. Vandanandu. Something, a given thing. A given means a thought. Thought means something, a given thing. But consciousness cannot be thought of through a notion, because notion makes it as a something given. Consciousness is free from individualization. This is the beauty. Sakshi means consciousness is free from being individual. It is not an individual thing. It is not a given thing. It is everything. Everything means infinite. You can't say this is consciousness and this is not. See, when you can say this and this, such and such, then that is a notion. That is a notion. That the consciousness or the Atma or Sakshi is without any individualization. Means what? You cannot talk of consciousness as this and not this. This kind of demarcation when you can't make, that is consciousness. Infinity when you say, Ananta, Sarvavyapaka. In Sanskrit when we say, what does it mean? Ananta, Sarvavyapaka, infinity, what does it mean? It means that it is not a given thing. It is not something exclusive. It is this and not this. There is nothing you can exclude. Consciousness is not a given thing and nothing can be excluded from it. Therefore, it is whole thing, one, just one non-dual, one without the second. Therefore, a notion you entertain, any notion refers to something and not the other. This divisiveness, this selected one, this a particular one, a selected one, or something when you say a notion is entertained. A notion comes up to this extent. Beyond this, no notion can be held. No thought can be held. No thought can be entertained where you cannot divide. You cannot select. Okay, this much and not the rest. Therefore, thought always selects, demarcates this much. Thought, this is what thought does it. But Atma is free from thought. Even I notion also means demarcation. I, this is I and not you. I and not the rest. So even the I notion also is a demarcation, is something selected by excluding something else. By excluding something else, you talk of I notion. But Atma is free from I notion means what? See the difference? What is I notion and what is Sakshi? I notion means it is a given thing excluded from others and not other. I notion has this much, that I am and not the other, not you, not this. So I notion also means something given. But Sakshi means you can't say this is Sakshi and this is not. Because nothing can be separated, nothing can be excluded from it. It is, that's all. It just is. Wholeness, all inclusive and not excluding anything. So this consciousness cannot be held through a thought. So no thought can be entertained about it. Therefore, by negating all thoughts, by negating all notions, you come to see that consciousness is always there, because it is not a result of negating something. It is not a result of asserting. Neither you can affirm nor you can negate. Okay? It is not a result of a given thought. It is not a result of a given process. This is what you have to remember. It's not a result of a given thought, not a result of excluding something. If you exclude, that becomes again a limited. Okay, therefore, Atma is everything. Therefore, this excluding, including, so excluding is a process of a thought, is a nature of thinking. So Atma is free from all kinds of thinking, all such thinking which only divides this and not the rest, this much and not the rest. So every thought selects, excludes, selects and excludes. But Atma is free from any exclusiveness, free from any thought. That's why when all these excluding thoughts, thought means excluding, thought means selecting, thought means dividing. Okay, the very thought means dividing, excluding, delimiting, this and not the rest. So this kind of divisiveness is the thought. The very nature of thought is divisive. Therefore, Atma, the consciousness, is free from such a division, free from such exclusion. So what doesn't exclude anything? Now, how do you understand Atma? You can't entertain a thought. See, Atma is Atma. No thought can be entertained about Atma. If you entertain a thought, that becomes an Atma. That becomes an Atma. Whether it is a thought of you or thought of I, any thought you entertain, that becomes an Atma. Anatma means divisive, selective. Atma itself is neither a divided thing nor a selected thing. How can you entertain a thought about it? This is a very interesting thing. How can you have a thought about it? What can you think of? This, so and so, such and such. Because thought can think only by dividing something, by excluding something. By all inclusive, thought cannot entertain. By all inclusive, whole thing is one. Thought dissolves there. Thought dissolves there. Thought doesn't work. This is the thing. That's when the thought doesn't work, when the thought dissolves, that is called a negation. When we say neti neti, what do you mean by neti neti? What do you mean by neti neti? Negation. Negation means what? We don't know what is what negation also means. Means, see here, you see, it is all inclusive. All, because all inclusive means a thought cannot grasp it. The thought cannot be formed. A thought forms only by excluding something, by selecting something. When a thought cannot be formed, when you say all inclusive and excluding nothing, I think you can't imagine such a thing. Imagination falls off. Imagination doesn't work. When all the thoughts become incapable, when all the thoughts fail, no thoughts works, but it is self-existing. Because it is all inclusive. All thoughts function in it. Because it is underlying. It is the basis of all thoughts. But itself is not available for any thought. So when you say no thought can catch it, no thought can comprehend it, no thought can imagine it, then all thoughts fall short of infinity. All thoughts fall short of infinity when you realize it, not blindly accepting it. When you realize that every thought is only dividing, selecting, dividing, selecting, dividing, selecting, excluding. But the truth itself is non-exclusive. That means what? Thought doesn't work. All thoughts fail. All thoughts are incapable. When you understand these things, all thoughts, including I thought, when all thoughts are understood as just incapable, thought formation stops. That means all thoughts fail. Then no thought refers to Atma. Or thought refers to, a thought cannot refer to Atma. Atma is not available for any thought. If you have a thought, that is not Atma. If you have a thought, that is not an Atma. This much if you understand, thoughts are negated. Neti neti happened. So neti neti means this much. Okay, therefore, then when neti neti happens, that means all thoughts fail. But what is that background on which all these thoughts look failing? That swata siddham, self-existing is consciousness is always there. Itself there. It is there in and through all your thoughts. Whether thought or no thought, it has been there throughout. Therefore, when all the thoughts fail, those thoughts are also included. The failed thought or existing thought, thoughts are also included. Therefore, it is a non-dual. See, even that there is nothing other than consciousness. Even the thought itself is a non-existing, because thought means anatma. Anatma doesn't exist. Anatma doesn't exist when the thoughts have no place. Thought also is understood as one consciousness alone. Therefore, neither bhava abhava or presence and absence are also Brahman alone. There is nothing other than the Atma. So this non-duality is understood by negating everything. Okay. Therefore, sushuptyadav ananvayat. Therefore, the thought of I, all other thoughts we are able to negate. All other thoughts are anatma. It is easy to understand. We are stuck with I notion. All other pratyayas we negate. Negate means we understand as not atma. But we are stuck with I notion. At least I notion is atma. No, he says I notion is not atma, because I notion doesn't continue with atma. Atma remains, consciousness remains without, by getting rid of, by dissociating, by rejecting I notion. How can you say that? See your deep sleep. Deep sleep is your own experience. You can't deny that you are that. Deep sleep means not somebody's experience, not your own tentative experience. Deep sleep is yourself. Just yourself, bare yourself. Nothing other than yourself. That is deep sleep. That's why you are not able to imagine deep sleep. Anything you imagine, mind becomes blank. See, it's a very interesting thing. Mind becomes blank. That means mind is unable to imagine. Blankness means mind is unable to imagine, means mind is failing. Mind is becoming no mind. Blank means what? Mind is unable to imagine. Mind is becoming no mind. When it becomes no mind, again when mind comes back, it says that, oh, I couldn't see anything, therefore it doesn't exist. It is blank. Blank means what? It doesn't exist. Mind declares it doesn't exist. Blank means what? It doesn't exist. Oh, mind says that what is beyond mind doesn't exist. Naturally, mind cannot understand what is beyond mind. Because mind cannot understand. Mind means a thought. Thought cannot understand what is beyond thought. Why? It's a good question, you see. A thought or mind cannot understand what is beyond thought, because itself doesn't exist. How can I understand when I don't exist? Mind cannot understand what is beyond mind, because their mind doesn't exist. Well, where mind doesn't exist, how can the mind understand it? Where the mind doesn't exist, how can the mind understand? Because itself doesn't exist. So, where I don't exist, mind says that itself doesn't exist. Where mind doesn't exist, where mind dissolves, that experience, you ask the mind, hey, what do you say about that where you did not exist? He says such a thing doesn't exist. Because I am the one to decide. Where I don't exist, I can't say anything. Therefore, I say that If you ask me, I say that doesn't exist. Absence of mind doesn't exist. Thoughtlessness doesn't exist, because thoughtlessness is another thought alone. Beyond mind is another mind alone. Beyond mind is another state of mind. This is what mind can think of. Mind can think of. Beyond mind is another mind alone. Beyond thought is another thought alone, because that's what mind can think of. If you think of beyond thought, mind thinks in some manner it is a blank, it is something. Means by comparing, by contrasting with the thought, it imagines. It imagines by contrasting with the thought. When you contrast, the thought is removed, then what do you say? You can't say anything, because the very contrasting thought is swallowed. Thought and absence of thought, both are swallowed. Both are mutually contrasting, thought and absence of thought. But the consciousness is neither thought nor absence of thought. It swallows both. Therefore, it is non-dual. Sushuptadau ananvayat. Therefore, in Sushupti, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the I notion doesn't continue. He says. Now Purvapakshi says, Yastu tatrapi ahamo astitvam atishthate tam anubhavah eva parakaroti iti tam prati nakinchid vaktavyam. Now, how Advaitins try to show that I thought is not continuing with Atma. Atma stands independent of I thought. Not that Atma had I thought before and now it got rid of it. That means Atma has two states. That it had an I thought before, I notion, and now it has got rid of it. No. This again will be two states. Atma neither has I thought nor it got rid of it. Atma alone is everything. That's all, non-dual. Therefore, I thought and its absence of it, I thought and its going away, both are only Adhyasa Kalpita in the Atma. I thought, I notion, and its absence of it, both are Kalpita in the Atma. Atma itself is non-dual. There is no such thing other than Atma. That is Advait. This comes only with Vakya. Though this comes only with Vakya, Vakya alone can show you that there is nothing other than consciousness alone is. Okay, so here Purvapakshi says that Ahamaha astitvam atishthate. They say Aham is always there. I notion, Aham pratyaya is always with Atma. In other words, Aham pratyaya is the nature of Atma. This is what Purvapakshi says. That means Dvaitins say. And how do you say? They say Aham pratyaya is always there with the Atma in waking state. In dream state, yes, we accept in waking state there is I notion. But if you subtly watch, even waking state, it is not there. But anyway, Purvapakshi says. In fact, for Advaitins, if you watch subtly, even in waking state, there is no I notion. You just watch. The whole consciousness, if you take, the entire wakeful consciousness is free from I notion. You can watch right in waking. But those who can't see, you have to show sleep. Otherwise, you can see in the waking state alone, you can see that consciousness is free from I notion. It's a very straight. Uttamadhikari can see directly. But those who cannot see, we show deep sleep. Okay. So Purvapakshi says that I notion is there in waking state. Okay, let us accept his standpoint, because that's what is his incomplete understanding. That what is wrong understanding. But okay, let us tentatively take it. In waking there is an I notion. In dream there is an I notion. But he says, even in deep sleep, the same I notion continues. Surprising. That's what Dvaitins say. Dvaitins means all non-Advaitins. Other than Advaitins, everybody says the same. What do they say? I notion continues in deep sleep. Okay. Does I notion continue in deep sleep? Yes, they say. How? Advaitins say, see, here is the two things. Advaitins say there is no I notion in deep sleep. But if you understand that, there is no I notion even in waking and dream. But waking and dream may be a little difficult, but at least you can see in deep sleep there is no I notion. But Purvapakshi says I notion is existing even in deep sleep. This is where ultimately they are stuck. Advaitins say all non-Advaitins are unable to see. They say I notion must continue. It is continuing in deep sleep. This is the point. If you can show them, they accept Advaita. Otherwise they say I notion is there. Then Dvaita alone remains. Here he says yastu tatrapi ahamo astitvamatishthate. Those who accept that I notion exists even in deep sleep, Atma is not free from I notion. What is the mistake? Tam anubhava eva parakaroti. Our anubhava itself dismisses them, disproves them. Our anubhava itself disproves them, dismisses them. Therefore, we don't have to say anything about them. Swamiji's answer, you see, your very anubhava experience of deep sleep shows that you alone remain without anything, even without I notion. When our anubhava itself is directly showing, how can you hold that I notion continues even in deep sleep? Therefore, our anubhava, a universal experience itself, disproves your point. This is Swamiji's answer. But I feel we have to do little more explanation here is required. Swamiji is a Uttamadhikari. He understands instantly and then just leaves it. Sometimes he explains, but sometimes he says, so it is so obvious, and leaves it. And we people struggle. Some people ask me questions, how? Now I have to explain little bit, not much, just in 2-3 sentences alone. A few sentences I'll explain. Those who say that aham notion, I notion continues in deep sleep, they are not seeing the deep sleep, but looking at the deep sleep from the waker's standpoint. That is the mistake. You see that there is an I notion in deep sleep because you are imagining deep sleep when you are in waking state, because as I am speaking to you, you are listening. When I talk about deep sleep, staying as a waker, staying as a waking individual, you are recalling the deep sleep. Okay? Either you recall deep sleep or you imagine deep sleep. These are the only two things you do. You means all other people, normal people. Either you recall deep sleep or you imagine deep sleep. In either way, where you recall, it is a thought. When you imagine, it is a thought. And one who is recalling, one who is imagining is a waking mind. Okay, that's why they are unable to understand. Swamiji says your anubhava itself dismisses. They are unable to understand. Even this point they are unable to understand. They are unable to understand even this point. But Swamiji says we don't have to argue anything. Anubhava itself is a self-proof. You look at your deep sleep, there is no I thought. Even that they are unable to understand. Again, that means they are unable to look at the deep sleep. Even looking at deep sleep is becoming a difficulty for them. Then you have to help them here. We are not by argument, we are not trying to prove the deep sleep. See, we are not giving an argument about deep sleep. We are only helping you how to look at deep sleep. Okay? Because now deep sleep is a direct experience. You don't need any argument. Argument is only within the level of mind. Regarding an experience which is beyond mind, deep sleep is an experience beyond mind. Regarding such an experience, you don't need any argument. Argument means again bringing the mind. Argument means again bringing the mind and functioning at the level of mind. So therefore, deep sleep doesn't need any arguments. Then how do you help? We can only help them how to look at deep sleep. That's all we can do. When they say deep sleep, in deep sleep there is an I notion. Advaitins say there is no I notion. What is the difference? Why this difference of opinion? Because these people are looking at a deep sleep. Being a waker, they are either recalling. Recalling means what? Every human being, every jiva has got a swabhavika memory of deep sleep. See, this is also Swabhavika Adhyasa. What is Swabhavika Adhyasa? An instinctive thought, an instinctive notion. Just as you have a notion of waking state, just as you have a notion of dream state, you have a notion about deep sleep. Okay? See the difference I am talking. Notion of waking state, notion of dream state, but when it comes to deep sleep, notion of deep sleep I can't say. Notion of deep sleep I can't say. Notion about deep sleep. See the difference. I repeat, you just to see. Notion of waking state, notion of dream state, but see the contrast. Notion about deep sleep state. Okay? So this is the difference. Swamiji is just what he touches briefly. If you do manana, there is so much of depth in it. Bah. See, all these things Swamiji implies in that one statement. See, as I told you, we can't, by argument, you can't prove that there is no thought in deep sleep, because the very argument is a thought. The thought interferes in seeing your deep sleep. See, if I argue with you, you stand as a waker and listen to this argument. You also try to argue. This doesn't help you to understand deep sleep. Therefore, we have to help you how to look at the deep sleep, because in your very looking at the deep sleep, there is a mistake. Because you stand as a somebody and looking at deep sleep. Somebody who is watching the deep sleep. No. You stand as deep sleep, not as somebody looking at deep sleep. See the difference. You stand as a waker and look at the deep sleep. No. You stand as deep sleep, not as somebody looking at deep sleep. See the difference? My talks are meant for Manda Madhyam Adhikari. Therefore, I repeat, go from the two lower level. Therefore, Uttama Adhikaris need little patience with my talks. Okay. So, you stand as a waker and imagine deep, or either recall or imagine. Only two things you see regarding deep sleep. Now, this either you may call recalling deep sleep, or you may say imagining deep sleep. There is a slight difference. In imagining, when I talk of deep sleep, you try to imagine. If you imagine, you stand as a waker and try to imagine. That means you are still as a pratyaya. You are the notion. As a mind, as a notion, you are imagining. Then naturally, you say, aham thought is there. That naturally, anybody feels that, but that's not right. You are not looking at the deep sleep in a proper way. First is imagination is wrong. Okay, leave imagination. Then second thing is recalling. Okay, recalling the deep sleep. Regarding the recalling the deep sleep, I say you are recollecting or recalling or remembering deep sleep. Whatever you call, recalling, remembering, or a memory of deep sleep, all these three mean same. So when you have a memory, a thought of deep sleep, a thought about deep sleep, when you have this thought, okay, this thought is an instinctive thought. You are not consciously entertaining a thought about deep sleep. See, are you entertaining consciously a thought about waking state? See, I am a waker. I am in waking state now. Do you consciously entertain? That means, do you have a will? With your will, you are in waking state, or it is beyond your will? See this point? You don't have a thought of waking state by your will. You are not willing to have waking state. Can you stop your waking state, thought of waking state by your will? Come on, will it? Let me see. Nobody can do that. That means a thought of waking state is instinctive. That's what Shastra says, Swabhavika Adhyasa. The Shankaracharya says it is a Swabhavika Adhyasa, an instinctive thought which you have not entertained with your will. The will functions within the waking state. You stay as a waking person, then will. You use the will to think of various thoughts. Think a thought or drop a thought. Think of a thought or drop a thought. That means you entertain a thought or leave off the thought. But that I am, that individual, that aham pratyaya, you have not consciously entertained it by your will, you find yourself in the aham thought. Okay, waking state means the waking aham, the waking I notion is instinctive. It is swabhavika. You have not consciously entertained. You are that thought. You are aham thought. Okay, that means it is instinctive. Dream also is instinctive, swabhavika. Waking I notion is swabhavika. Dream notion is swabhavika. Then a memory of deep sleep also is swabhavika. You don't consciously entertain, you find yourself with a thought about deep sleep. Okay, just as you have instinctive natural is not swarupa, natural is swabhava. See, in Sanskrit, swabhava, swarupa is different. Not an essential nature, but a natural. Natural means a swabhava, not swarupa. So aham pratyaya, that is a waking aham, is an instinctive thought. That's why I call it instinctive. I don't know whether that English word instinctive means swabhavika in Indian language. Swamiji used, I am using it. I don't know, I am not so good at English. Anyway, so in Indian languages we call swabhavika, and we explain very clearly. So swabhavika, so in this sense I am using instinctively. Instinctively means not consciously entertained, not available for will, not available to will. It is there, that's all. You don't use it, you don't entertain it with your will, but you find you are in that thought. In this sense I am using instinctive. Okay, so wakefulness, that waking aham buddhi or waking thought is instinctive thought. That's why we call swabhavika adhyasa. Dream is also swabhavika adhyasa. A thought about deep sleep, when you are in waking, when you look at deep sleep, you have a thought about it, that there is no waking state in deep sleep. It is all blank, or it is all black, whatever you say, blank or black or nothing. This thought of blank, thought of nothing, this thought is also as instinctive as you have a waking thought. Okay, waking thought you don't entertain with your will, but you find yourself in the waking thought, swabhavika, instinctively. When it began, you can't show the beginning of it. Dream state also, you can't show the beginning of it. Dream state or even dream aham, the I notion of dream or I notion of waking, when it began, you can't show. Because beginning and end refers to time. The time exists within the state, waking state and dream state. Therefore, the waking as a state doesn't begin. It is swabhavika. State as a dream as a state, also beginningless. So, just as you have a swabhavika waking thought and dream thought, similarly, you have a deep sleep thought. These three thoughts are three aspects of one thought. Let us say waking, dream, and deep sleep. These three thoughts are a triad thought, three-part thought, a thought divided into three parts. Okay, in whatever way, tentatively I am talking, tentatively I am explaining. So this three-part thought is instinctive, is a swabhavika adhyasa. Just as you have a waking thought instinctively, you have a thought about deep sleep, that is also instinctive thought. Whenever we talk of deep sleep, you always refers to that thought about deep sleep. Thought about deep sleep, okay? Therefore, people say deep sleep, there is a I thought even in deep sleep. Therefore, people wrongly think that there is an I notion even in deep sleep. Okay, this is the mistake, because you have that memory of deep sleep, or you have an imagination of deep sleep, whatever you say, whether imagination or memory. The memory or imagination is an instinctive thought you are not consciously entertaining, but that instinctive thought is contrasting with waking and dream. Okay, it is contrasting with waking and dream. It is just as you have instinctive waking and dream thought, you have an instinctive contrasting thought. Okay, it is contrasting with the waking and dream and says it is blank. So that thought of blank is a memory about deep sleep. So this memory thought is always associated with waking thought. So just as, since you have a waking eye notion, with this waking eye notion, you look at the deep sleep thought. So the thought about deep sleep always seen through the eye notion. Therefore, this waking eye notion, you imagine that it is continuing in deep sleep thought. You think that this waking eye notion is there in relationship with memory about deep sleep. Therefore, whenever you think of deep sleep, you think that there is nothing, and that nothing, there is nothing. The thought of blankness also is associated with I thought. But when Advaitins say deep sleep, we are asking you not to look at that thought about deep sleep. Okay, thought about deep sleep is looked still when you are in waking state. You have the waking, you have a waking state, a dream state. When you have a waking state alone, you have a memory about deep sleep. But therefore, this waking thought and a memory of deep sleep, these two simultaneously exist. They are instinctively exist with jivas. So, but deep sleep itself is free from both. Neither your waking aham nor your memory of deep sleep. Neither waking aham nor memory of deep sleep. Both these things dissolve in deep sleep. Deep sleep is you alone remain. Now we are asking you not to recall deep sleep, not to imagine deep sleep. Stay as deep sleep. Stay as deep sleep is not your attempt. You are already the deep sleep. That means your bare you is called deep sleep. It is yourself. When you swallow the waking thought and memory of deep sleep, when you swallow the waking thought, the thought of waking and a memory of deep sleep, dream also is included anyway. All these thoughts you swallow, you are the deep sleep. That, because there is no thought, there is no word, nothing to express. Therefore, don't imagine deep sleep. Don't recall, because if you recall or imagine, you are standing as a waker. Therefore, this waking I thought is there as an underlying it. Therefore, people think that even in deep sleep there is I thought. Ayyo Rama, because they have missed it. They have missed it. But when we say Advaitins, look at the deep sleep. Look means don't look at. Stand as deep sleep. If you look at as a waker, standing as a waker, you look at deep sleep. Don't look at the weak sleep, because if you look at it, you are standing as a waker. Standing as a waker and trying to see. Okay. So don't look at deep sleep. You stand as a deep sleep. Stay as deep sleep. Now tell me. Now answer. There is nobody to answer. Okay, it is not even blank. Therefore, you can't say aham pratyaya continues in deep sleep. Therefore, when Swamiji says the deep sleep, the experience of deep sleep itself is a proof. We don't have to show any other argument. See that aham thought continuing in deep sleep is disproved by the very experience of deep sleep. This one sentence of Swamiji has so much of depth in it. All these things Swamiji implies. See, the deep sleep experience itself disproves a thought of aham continuing in deep sleep is dismissed, because I thought doesn't continue in deep sleep. Because a dropping of I thought, that means you are looking at deep sleep as a notion when you are as a waker. Therefore, to drop the wakership, the notion of about deep sleep also doesn't exist. See, notion of deep sleep always is associated with the waking thought. When you stand as a waker, you always have a thought about deep sleep. You always have a memory of deep sleep. The memory of deep sleep always is instinctively present. Memory of deep sleep is an instinctive, is swabhavik adhyasa. You are not consciously entertaining. You are not entertaining with your will. You find yourself with a notion about deep sleep. When you have a notion about waking also, notion about waking and notion about dream, notion of waking, notion of dream and notion about deep sleep. All these three notions are a one notion with three aspects. Three aspected one notion is instinctively present, and that is swabhavika adhyasa. Okay, this is called an instinctive adhyasa. Therefore, don't imagine, don't recall. If you recall means you stand as a waker and trying to recall. Then deep sleep looks like a state of a waker alone. It looks like a state experienced by the waking aham. That's why people think that this waking individual is going to sleep, experiencing it for a while and coming back. It looks that it is a waker's tentative experience. This is the mistake. See, it is a mistake. People think that deep sleep is a tentative experience of waking aham, but it is not true, because the waking aham and its contrast of deep sleep or even dream, none of them exist. They are all swallowed. Swallowed is only explanation we give. It is not even swallowed. There is only deep sleep, that's all. Swallowed is an explanation we give from the waking standpoint. Assuming that there is a waking, you call that it is swallowed. But from the experience of deep sleep, there is no question of swallowing. It doesn't exist at all. It's not that waking existed and swallowed into you, because that waking existed and I have swallowed. Even these two doesn't exist. Even this thought doesn't exist. Because to say that waking thought or thought about deep sleep is swallowed, you have to assume the thought and then talk of swallowing it. But deep sleep itself is neither the thought nor it is swallowed. It is just non-dual. Means it is yourself. You alone. Nothing else. Even to say nothing else, you have to assume. Nothing else also you can't say, because even to say nothing else, you have to assume and negate it. Nothing else means you have to imagine nothing and negate it. But itself is just is. Okay. Therefore, Swamiji says, see the deep sleep. Don't imagine. Don't look at the deep sleep. Stay as a deep sleep. Stand as a deep sleep. And then tell me. From that standpoint, tell me. When you are speaking, mind is there. But to that experience, it doesn't require mind. Okay. To speak, you have to come to waking. It is the waking mind speaks. But to stay as a deep sleep, you don't require waking mind. You stay as a deep sleep, but talk about the deep sleep only through your mind. See the difference. You have to impose the mind and then start speaking. You have to impose the mind and start speaking. But to stay as a deep sleep, you don't require mind. You don't require adhyasa of mind. Mind adhyasa itself doesn't exist. You don't remove. We need not say that you have removed the adhyasa. The very adhyasa of waking state doesn't exist there. It is itself. Okay. It is a just non-dual deep sleep. And that nothing exists. Even to say that nothing else exists, even to say, you have to imagine waking state and deny it. Imagine waking state and negate it. Imagine the memory of deep sleep and therefore the memory of deep sleep also is from the waking standpoint, but in the deep sleep itself, there is no thought of even memory. Okay. There is no thought of presence or absence of anything, neither presence nor absence, neither presence nor negation. Okay, nothing. It is just itself. Therefore, Swamiji says, deep sleep, the experience of deep sleep itself dismisses your Purapaksha, your argument, or your view that aham thought continues in deep sleep. That means your very looking is wrong. So, we are not using argument to prove that in deep sleep there is nothing. We are not arguing, we are not explaining. We are only telling you how to look at it. In your looking at, there is a wrong. There is a wrong angle. That wrong angle we are correcting. You correct the angle of looking, that you are looking from the waking aham buddhi. A waking individual, you are looking at deep sleep. That is a wrong. Once you understand the wrong, it just goes away. You stand as deep sleep. In that, there is no aham thought. Okay. Yastu tatrapi ahamo astitvam atashtate tamanubhava eva parakarotiti tam pratina kinchid vaktavyam. Next argument. He says, Sugama aswapsam, that I slept well, I did not know anything. We have this memory about deep sleep in the waking. Now, what about this memory? On the strength of this memory, Purapakshi says that there was I thought. Okay, there was I thought during the deep sleep. He argues based upon the memory about deep sleep that I did not know anything. Okay, that I did not know anything. I slept well. Based upon this memory, Purvapakshi says that there was aham thought in deep sleep. Okay, we shall refute this. Siddhanti refutes this. Time is over. We'll discuss in the next class. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat.